Hey, how y'all doing, guys? It's X once again, and I did say in my announcement video that I was going to use 2K gameplay footage to do my series recap, but number one, I'm too lazy, and number two, the semester just ended for me. I did a lot of assignments, and I'm currently job hunting, and I had a lot of shit to do today, so there's that. But anyways, welcome to episode 2 of series recap. This episode is going to be talking about this particular series between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. So going into the series, I did have the Bucks winning, but I figured that it would be a much closer series than expected. I expected the Heat to show a lot of fight, and even with the loss of Jae Crowder, who was actually a pivotal piece for him, Miami definitely shot themselves in the foot, letting him walk for nothing and give Myers Leonard, who called somebody a slur, which I'm not gonna say on here, and then they simply traded him. They gave him $10 million a year over Jae Crowder. I understand Jay wanted the years, but I guess the main objective for Miami was that they thought Giannis was going to leave in free agency, and they wanted to go all in the Giannis sweepstakes, as I explained in my Miami Heat video. That obviously did not happen, and they ended up signing Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless, two pretty good defenders, but they were not going to really replace the stuff that Jae Crowder did for him, and to a certain extent Derrick Jones Jr., because he's a pretty good defender, and he's, I guess, doing pretty well in Portland. I don't know if he's really in the rotation for the Nuggets Blazers series, but losing those guys, and then you trade Avery Bradley, and I guess Avery Bradley was injured, and I did predict that he was going to go to Miami. Shout out to everybody that watched that video. That video has over 2,500 views, which is a pretty big accomplishment considering I'm still a young guy that just started his YouTube career. And there was also a dude that commented that I don't know anything about basketball, which is probably true, but I literally said that they need a really good backup big because Kelly Olynyk and Myers Leonard were not really that good. Myers Leonard is just a big dude who can, I guess, space the floor. And I was wrong about Kelly Olynyk because Kelly did basically anything you can ask him to do offensively, and he was not that great of a defender. Now, they did trade him to Houston at the trade deadline so they can get Victor Oladipo, and also Avery Bradley was also included in that deal. And they signed Dwayne Dedmon, which is fine because Dwayne Dedmon is 6'11". He's a good defender, good rebounder, and good lob catcher. And he's a serviceable big man for Bam Adebayo when he gets into foul trouble. You know what I mean? Like, he's a good backup big for Bam. And getting Victor Oladipo was a decent sign in the right direction, but the thing is, Victor Oladipo got hurt, which not only caused him to miss the rest of the season, but it also put a lot of pressure on a 37-year-old Andre Iguodala, and they thought they could replace the work of Jae Crowder with a guy like Trevor Ariza, which resume-wise, that would be fine because Trevor is a former champion with the Lakers, and he has a lot of playoff experience, more recently the one he had in Houston, except for that one playoff game where he was part of the missed 27 threes club. We don't need to talk about that. But resume-wise, that sounded fine. But the thing is, he was trash this whole series except for Game 4. Game 4, he was fine with 11 points, shooting 50% from 3, but it was basically too little too late at that point. You feel me? And the loss of Jae Crowder, too, was a huge part on why the Miami Heat fell to the Bucks, because Jay was a very pivotal piece for the Miami Heat, and he was big, and he can stop Giannis with his size. I know Giannis has the height advantage, but Crowder has a lot of size and also physicality to bang bodies with Giannis and all the other guys. And he was probably their most reliable three-point shooter outside of Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson. And don't remind me, as of right now, Jay has been shitting these playoffs, okay? I'm aware of that. And can we talk about the other guys too? I want to start off with Bam Adebayo, as Flight would call him. Bam had an interview with Dwayne Wade, Shaquille O'Neal, Candace Parker when I think the Heat won their game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, it was that game. He had an interview where he was like saying, oh, he's defensive player of the year. Now that's fine. I can't knock the kid for his confidence. I feel like that he is a really, really good defender. You know, you have to believe you're the best in order to beat the best. You feel me? Like, I get the confidence. That's great. But the thing is, he got shit on this whole series, bro. Like Brook Lopez had 25 points on him, and guys were just walking all over the Heat's defense too. Giannis, even though he didn't have the best series of all time, he still got to the paint easily as opposed to last year. Drew Holiday was shredding the damn defense every single time he had the ball. PJ Tucker PJ Tucker from a few games I watched, he was getting into the paint, getting offensive rebounds and putbacks. And the Heat defense was a total letdown, bro. Like, no cap. And throughout the whole playoffs, Bam was not good at all in this series, bro. Like, he had a 20 points and 13 rebounds. Let me look on my NBA app real quick. Yeah, Bam had 20 points and 14 rebounds and a steal and a block, which is pretty good. But the thing is, most of his production came in the first half. Now, I was playing basketball and I didn't even watch the full game. I watched the highlights. But most of the Heat's production in game four, most of their production came within the first half. And they somewhat tried to put up a fight in game four. But the thing is, Milwaukee was just showing that they're not the same team from last year. And as much as I love Jimmy and his toughness, he was such a letdown this series, bro. Like, he played horrible. Now, let's give credit to Milwaukee's defense. Everyone and their mothers last year were begging for Mike Budenholzer to stop all this bullshit zone and have Giannis, the defensive player of the year, guard Jimmy Butler, who was killing him. Because as I said in my Bucks video, the defensive schematics by Mike Budenholzer was to mostly use Giannis as a help defender, not the primary defender. And when they realized it didn't work, well, Budenholzer shit the bed. He did the same thing with Kawhi too in the series against Toronto, where Giannis should have been the one guarding Kawhi, but they had Middleton guard him. Eric Bledsoe at a few points guarded him in that series, and they even switched Brook Lopez onto him, and that was more credit to the Raptors screening him, but you get the idea. Giannis was mostly used to defend guys like, let's say, Pascal Siakam or Marc Gasol. And Budenholzer looked at that and was like, man, you know, I'm not letting history repeat itself. I'm going to let Giannis guard Jimmy Butler, which makes sense. You have Drew Holiday, who's an absolute bulldog on defense, PJ Tucker, who is also a bulldog on defense, Chris Middleton, who is a pretty good defender, and Brook Lopez, well, he's a good paint protector and help defender, but that's the extent of it. Losing Dante DiVincenzo will be huge, though, because once they do face the Nets, you need a guy like DiVincenzo, because I know you still have Drew and Middleton and Giannis to defend the big three of Brooklyn and Kyrie, KD, and Harden. But Dante DiVincenzo is kind of like what Alex Caruso is for us. Like, he may not have the most outstanding stat line ever, but if you watch the games closely, some of the games were actually winnable because Dante DiVincenzo made it so with his hustle, his heart, his defense, and his ability to space the floor. And losing him is going to be really huge for Milwaukee going forward. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go back to the Miami Heat before we talk more about the Bucks later on in this video. I read a comment on Rusty's video, and it perfectly describes everything about this year's Miami Heat team in comparison to last year. So there's this dude named M, shout out to him. He said what happened is that the Heat got caught up in their own hype. People started thinking Jimmy was a true superstar when he's really never been a number one option on the team. Like, he was a number one option on the team in Chicago, but that only got him as far as a game 6 in the first round against the Boston Celtics when they had Isaiah Thomas. And people overhyped the hell out of their young players like Bam and Tyler and Duncan Robinson. And that's why they didn't want to trade either of them for a guy like, let's say, Bradley Beal or James Harden. Now, Bam will make sense because you need him on the defensive end. But Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson, absolutely, I would have looked in to trade them. You feel me? Now, I get it that Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and Bam, they're like the future for the Miami Heat. But if you are a team that's looking to win now, why not trade them when they still have high value and they can be in a place where their game can truly grow? Because Tyler is barely the same age as me. Like, I'm 20 years old. I think Tyler is like a year older than me. Same with both Duncan, and obviously Bam is like 5 years older than me. But if you put Tyler and Duncan in a place like, let's say, the Houston Rockets, if they did get James Harden, it gives their game an ability to grow. Now, Rusty did make a point in his video discussing the Miami Heat where he said maybe the GM and the owner did not want to feel like that this could end up turning out to be another version of the James Harden trade back in 2012 where OKC traded him to Houston for Kevin Martin. In this sense, they're probably thinking that, look, we don't want, Tyler Herro to all of a sudden turn to a superstar when he could turn to a superstar while he's still with us. But here's the thing about it. Jimmy Butler is 32 years old and he's going to be 33 next year, right? And Tyler is 20 years old. Duncan is probably the same age, and they still have a lot of room to grow as players too. And here's another thing about that. When the James Harden trade went down, OKC was really looking to win now. Now, yeah, James Harden didn't want to be a six man and he wanted a max extension, which is fine. But here's the thing about it though. James Harden was 23 years old and Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant at the time were around 23 years old as well. So you're really not losing anything besides, yeah, you lose a good score in James Harden, but had he stayed with Oklahoma City, at best he would be a bigger version of Lou Williams. He would not be a multiple time All Star and a scoring champ. And the thing is about Tyler Herro and James Harden is that James Harden wasn't the most hyped piece in Oklahoma City. It was mainly Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Here, Tyler Herro was everybody's. Oh my gosh, dude. Like, everybody was a big Tyler Herro fan. Now, I admit, I made a post on Instagram saying that he was better than Paul George in the playoffs. But that was due to recency bias, and that was that funny pic of him in a do-rag. And I said something to the liking of give me this guy over playoff P any day. 9 months later, after all those terrific performances in the bubble, Tyler Herro regressed a lot. And some people may argue that all the fame, the advertisements, and the promos and all that, it's getting into his head, and he's probably using basketball as a way of clout chasing, arguably. Now, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying he is. Some people are actually arguing that. Duncan Robinson, on the other hand, has been, I guess, okay, but I don't know what went wrong with Miami this series other than their defense let them down and they weren't getting shit on offense, mainly because Milwaukee was so much better defensively. And bench was their bench was damn near a retirement home because you have an old Andre Iguodala, an old Trevor Ariza, and Goran Dragic. Now I know Goran Dragic started, I think the last 3 games over Kendrick Nunn, and Kendrick Nunn was fine, but still, like the main guys that were coming off the bench were Iguodala and Ariza, and those two were at the what do you say? The twilight of their careers. Yeah, there we go. They're at the twilight of their careers. But to end my 14-minute soliloquy about the Miami Heat, they have a lot of soul searching to do. They really do. Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and all those guys, they have their work cut out for them. And let's just hope they don't shit the bed this free agency and get Kawhi Leonard or DeMar DeRozan or anyone else that can be a big difference maker to this Miami Heat team because they really need it right now. Especially after getting swept 4 games to nothing after taking my Lakers to 6 games with a healthy LeBron, a healthy AD, and one of the best defensive teams in the league. So, yeah. Miami has their work cut out for them. Now, let's move on to the Milwaukee Bucks. I still stand by my point that I made in my Bucks video that Milwaukee has a puncher's chance to come out of the East. Meaning, despite all the talent they have on their roster with Holiday, Middleton, Tucker, Bobby Portis, who I wanted the Heat and the Warriors to get, and to a certain extent, I wanted the Lakers to get too, because we definitely could use him over Marc Gasol and Andre Drummond, despite the fact that both are not even playing that bad. But that's for another episode series recap. But even with all that talent, I don't think they're that good to beat the big three Brooklyn Nets in a 7-game series. Now, granted, they could if Brooklyn has a lot of injuries going on with them and a lot of things are not trending in the right direction for Brooklyn, then Milwaukee could take advantage of that and upset the big three. And in terms of the Sixers, if they do face the Sixers, I think that's a pretty even matchup. I mean, Ben and Giannis can't shoot, but it's mostly a duel between Giannis and Embiid. Two Titans going at it who are very physically dominant, especially in the paint. So if they do face Brooklyn and win against Brooklyn and play Philly in the conference finals, that would be a really, really difficult series for the Milwaukee Bucks. So everything has to go right for Milwaukee and everything has to go wrong for both Philly and Brooklyn in order for the Milwaukee Bucks to advance to the NBA Finals. Now, that's not me knocking on the Milwaukee Bucks because they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent. But I don't think they're talented enough to compete with the Brooklyn Nets should they face them in the second round, and which I believe they will. But if we want to stick to this particular series against Miami, it showed that they got better in the offseason trading Eric Bledsoe for Jrue Holiday. Eric Bledsoe is a good regular season player and completely dog shit in the playoffs, dude. Like, he had one good game throughout his entire playoff tenure with the Bucks. From what I remember, it was that game 5 against Toronto where they lost. Other than that, Eric Bledsoe has really not been all that good for Milwaukee in the playoffs at all. And they got an upgrade in Jrue Holiday, and their defensive schematics got a lot better too. Like I said, they put Giannis on Jimmy Butler, which everybody, like I said, everybody and their mothers were begging Coach Budenholzer to put Giannis on Butler, and that's what he did. And Jimmy had a lot of trouble getting into the paint and getting into the spots. Now, and even if they switch Jrue Holiday on him, that ain't gonna work because Jrue is a good defender as well. Switching Middleton on him would not work because Middleton's a good defender as well. Brook Lopez could have worked somewhat, but the size and the shot blocking ability of Giannis, as well as, Middleton and Holiday and PJ Tucker too, cutting him off and making him think twice, that also showed. And it really gave Miami a whole lot of trouble this series. Now, like I said, losing Dante DiVincenzo is huge for Milwaukee come second round because as great as Middleton, Jrue, and Giannis are, you need DiVincenzo on the defensive end, like I said. And I'm saying this because Dante DiVincenzo is low-key an unsung hero for this Milwaukee Buck team. But let's stop talking about the defense because they're still a good defensive team. But they do need DiVincenzo in these moments, especially come round 2 against Brooklyn. But the offense had looked so much better in this series as opposed to last year. It wasn't just all Giannis drive to the paint and just hope he gets a foul call or whatever, because he did that a lot in the second round against Miami and the conference finals against Toronto. But they have an actual reliable facilitator in Jrue Holiday. Middleton has been hitting the shots, and Milwaukee's moving the ball a lot, which they do incorporate ball movement, and they did that in the playoffs. So the thing is, it wasn't as there was a noticeable change with Miami's offensive system, and getting a player like Drew Holiday as well as Bryn Forbes. Let me talk about him. Bryn Forbes had 2 more points than Jimmy Butler this whole playoff series. Bryn Forbes is an absolute shooter. Okay? Bryn Forbes can shoot the lights out of the ball, and he shot the lights out in this Miami series. I think game 4, he had like, let's see, I'm looking at my NBA app right now. Yeah, Bryn Forbes had 22 points off the bench. In game 1, he did not play well, but the next 3 games after that, he was pretty exceptional. He shot 7 for 14 in game 4, 3 for 7 in game 3, and 6 of 9 for game 2. Pause. So it really shows that Milwaukee has a lot of depth offensively. And Jeff Teague is also a decent piece. And I do still believe that they should have went out and got somebody like Rajon Rondo, because he can pair well with Giannis and he can really unlock Giannis's potential as a role man, similar to what he did with Kevin Garnett and Anthony Davis last year. And he's played alongside Drew Holiday before, and they dominated the first round against Portland, which kind of sucked that they didn't pull the trigger. And Rondo got into an argument with the Clippers locker room, and they were probably like, "Oh man, let's put this guy in the crunch time lineup so he doesn't get pissed," and rightfully so. But the offense, regardless, got a lot better. Giannis had 15 assists this game. Drew Holiday has been averaging double-digit assists. He had 9 assists this game, and he had 4 steals. So, excuse me, Milwaukee is sharing the ball more, and they have a lot of reliable shot creators that is just not Chris Middleton. I know they had George Hill and Malcolm Brogdon, and letting those two go was a mistake, especially Malcolm Brogdon, because he was your best shot creator. He was like your Drew Holiday before Drew Holiday. But like I said in my Milwaukee Buck video, the way they made the trade for Drew Holiday made up for that, because this year proved that Drew Holiday and Malcolm Brogdon were kind of like on the same level with each other. I know Brogdon is taller, but Holiday is bigger and it has more size and experience. Now, and that's not a shot on Malcolm Brogdon at all. I think he's a damn good player, and he's going to have a great career in Indiana. But Drew Holiday really filled the void that Malcolm Brogdon left. I think this year he averaged 17 a game. Yeah, 17 a game off of near 50, 40, 90 shooting splits, which is not necessarily on par with what Brogdon did besides the shooting splits, because I think Malcolm averaged a good 15 off of 50, 40, 90 with 6 assists a game as well, because Drew Holiday also averaged 6 assists. But yeah, Drew Holiday was the right move for Milwaukee. Chris Middleton, he's still a damn good offensive player, and Giannis is getting a lot of help, and they're going to make it really hard for Brooklyn this upcoming series. So I'm giving the Milwaukee Bucks their flowers, but the Miami Heat, going back to them one more time, y'all need to do some soul searching, because this roster this year just ain't it for y'all. All right. But yeah, that will conclude this very long episode of series recap. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, because I'm really visualizing this series now. It's probably going to be 25-minute episodes just like this one. But I'm really excited to do this the rest of the way with y'all. So, yeah, I really don't have anything to discuss. But like, comment, and subscribe. I didn't mention that in my last video, but I'll mention it here. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I just said that shit already. Share the video with your friends or whatever the hell y'all can do. Yeah, that's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces. Oh yeah, P.S. Butler Jimmy woke up at 5 a.m. just to average 13 points on very bad efficiency and get swept. That's it.